Hello. So, I know that some of you here will be new since this is something different than what I was doing. My name is Celeste. I am a VTuber. I usually do anime stuff, but after some talk with friends and family, I've decided to also start reviewing some of my other hobby, which is horror shows and movies. These are pretty much ad lib. I have some help so that I can remember the episodes because I'm going to go into a bit of detail about what I liked about them and things like that. Um, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be covering The Fall of the House of Usher, a miniseries on Netflix from creator Mike Flanagan. I believe the first thing I actually saw from Mike Flanagan was Oculus, and after that was Gerald's Game, and I adored both of them, and so I really enjoyed Fall of the House of Usher. Fall of the House of Usher also is in reference to the Edgar Allan Poe short story. And whenever I was watching this, I didn't quite catch on that, like, while the overarching story is Fall of the House of Usher, the actual, like, episodes each had different, like, stories for Edgar Allan Poe. So, with that, the overarching thing is basically that the head of the Usher family, Roderick, has invited a police officer, well, more of like a PI kind of thing. He works as a lawyer now, I think, but he originally started off like investigative reporter kind of thing. To his childhood home in order to explain what's going on. He has recently lost all 6 of his children from 5 different mothers, which is exactly how he words it. He has 6 kids from 5 moms. His dad was not in his life because his dad did not want to acknowledge him or his twin sister, Madeline. And he said he would never do that to his children. If they came to him, they were an usher. So we end up seeing them sitting, and he says, I'll give you everything that you've wanted. They've been trying to, like, pin him down for years on some of the stuff going on in the background with his pharmaceutical company. So his family is very wealthy, which later we do I guess I should go ahead again and say that there are spoilers in this. I am going through the entire series. So yeah, we find out is that his wealth, well, their wealth is not really just on them. It's because of something that they've done. But let's start at the beginning. So Roderick, who is the head of the family, he invites over Dupin to talk about this, and we find out that, like, at the beginning of it, we see him burying 3 of his children. His children are Frederick, Tamerlane, Victorine, Napoleon are Leo, Camille, and Prospero are Perry. And it actually gives in the opposite order, the way that they die. So he was burying his 3 oldest children. Which, to be more specific, Frederick and Tamerlane are from his wife, his first wife. He has now been remarried, and then after that divorce, he ended up having another child, which was Victorine. So, yeah. So we go and we start to find out a little bit about Roderick. He goes into a story in the first episode about him and his sister living with their mom. Their mom told them never to go to her employer's house, which obviously children, they didn't want to listen. She was a secretary, and it's very much not directly stated, but it's very obvious that she ended up sleeping with him, with her employer, and that is their father. But he does not acknowledge them. He has his own family, um, everything like that. So, uh, his mom is very religious, and she does not believe in like going to get a doctor or anything like that. So whenever she gets sick, they keep trying to convince her, and they're like, "We can't do this alone. We have to talk to her employer." And so they go and they come up with this like bullshit story of what they're like going to tell him, and they end up deciding like one of the things that Roderick ends up telling him is she loves you, and he calls bullshit on that, and he basically like runs them off. It's like, yeah, someone's gonna get in trouble for this. It's like, she's a great secretary, but like I don't want this isn't my problem. Um, their mom ends up uh dying, and they aren't sure what to do exactly because like they don't want to give her to the hospitals or anything, because if they do that then they're going to like embalm her and everything. She wouldn't want that. So they go to the shed and they end up putting together a casket, and they dig the hole themselves and they bury her. In the middle of the night, Roger ends up hearing something. It's raining, and he goes and he sees that his mom is no longer in the casket. Like, you can see the top of the casket and she's not in it. So he's like, oh no. So he goes to wake up his twin, and they go and they end up finding her in the house, and she almost strangles him. She had a weird condition that made it seem like she was dead, and she was not. They convince her to let Roderick go. Well, specifically, Madeline ends up convincing her to let Roderick go. And so she drops him, but then she starts walking off. And she walks straight to her employer's house. And he comes out. And he's shocked to see her because she's in this horrible state. She's covered in dirt. She obviously had to dig her way out a little bit. And she got out of the casket. And she strangles him with the last bit of strength that she has. And he dies. And she dies. And that's how everything started for them. Like, they are technically the heirs to the company that this man owns, but he had never acknowledged them, so legally they can't do anything. It was a different time. I want to say this was in the 1970s, I think. I'd have to double check that, but regardless, it was not as modern, so things were still a little bit difficult. Um, So that's how the series starts, and during this, whenever we cut back to present day, we can see Roderick. Um, like, he sees his mother, behind Dupin, and so yeah, it's he tells him to turn around and he would see her, but he's like, no, this is just you trying to show that you still have all of this power and whatnot. Um, I can't remember exactly which episode it's in, but we do find out that Roderick has a disease that basically makes him hallucinate. And that's kind of what's going on here, is he hallucinates his family and they tell him how he dies. I mean, we assume it's hallucinations, but there is some like supernatural stuff going on as well. Um so during that we also end up seeing that they are in court. They are um trying to take down the company, or the company's trying to get taken down, and they have a wonderful lawyer. They've been through this millions of times, it seems like, at this point, and they just kind of cover up everything. But Dupin ends up saying that they have an informant, and so Roderick ends up like telling them that if one of them finds them, then they'll get $50 million. And he's pretty sure it's one of his like kids, um, which everyone assumes it's Perry, the youngest, because he hasn't really found his place yet in the family. Everyone's kind of got like a thing. So like, uh, his oldest, Frederick, is the heir to like everything. He's been taught like what to say. Tamerlane, she has like all this entrepreneur stuff that she's doing. Her husband is super like fitness guy, and she made him like his own thing. And Victorine is a surgeon. Napoleon is a gamer. He comes up with ideas for games, and he kind of sells those ideas, but that keeps money in his pocket. Camille is head of like PR for their entire company, and she's very in depth as far as like getting information from people. Um, she has her own two little like stooges. I guess technically they would be goons. There's some gooning going on there for sure. But we'll deal with that later. Um, and then that leaves Perry, who he's just kind of like still in that phase of like early 20s where he's like, I just want to go and have sex and do drugs and like all this stuff. I'm glad that I don't have monetization yet on this channel. If I ever do get monetization, this is not gonna go well. um. So yeah. Um. So the next episode we get is about Perry. So Perry wants to make Prospero nightclub, which is basically pop-up nightclubs that you pay a small fortune to get into. And to him, he's like, this is the next big thing. But his dad won't actually give him the money for it. He's like, come up with a better idea. You know, you have time. But he doesn't like that. So he ends up finding out about some places that his family owns that are apparently very big violations because they are causing damage to the environment around them. They've closed them down since, so that they're not going to get in trouble. And it's basically like, yeah, we're going to tear them down. We'll move everything beforehand. Hush, hush. Keep your mouth shut, kind of stuff. Well, Perry likes the idea of one of these, and he's like, oh yeah, like definitely gonna use this place for a nightclub. So he gets with his two partners, well, two of his partners, and he decides to do that. They have to have like a code to get in. It's only the most elite people, which we find out is specifically because he is recording all of it. It's supposed to be like an orgy. It's a drug-filled orgy. And so he goes and he has something to give to his oldest brother, Frederick. And while he's there, he talks to Frederick's wife, who he finds very attractive. And he gives her a burner phone. It's like, hey, you should totes join us. And she's kind of questionable about it, but like she's been stuck with this. Also, they are the only ones that have a child. Her name is Lenore. She's a very smart kid. Um, she doesn't know everything that's going on with the family. It's very obvious that she's not in the know. Whether that's because she's a child or because they're not sure where she's going to fit in, even with Frederick being the heir. I'm not. It's not completely stated, but Lenore, she's basically like, if this is something bad, then we need someone to find out, and it needs to be stopped. And she keeps having to change her dad's wording because he keeps saying that there's like a spy or something, and she's like, no, it's an informant. There's a difference. It's someone on the inside already. Um, Anyway, Perry goes. He decides to set this up. The whole idea is, no phones, no jewelry, anything except for like the jewelry they have to wear in order to like unlock the stuff. Um, and it's gonna be a masquerade ball. And then at midnight, he wants to turn on all of the sprinklers and everyone just have sex. Again, he's recording all of this, so anybody that's anybody, he will have blackmail on. So really, that's the end goal of like these clubs he wants to make. He wants to get the best of the best in there, so he can see the worst of their worst. Um, of course, he left that part out. So he's recording all of that during the but before that they're like, yeah, the sprinkler system's messed up, and he's like, oh well, my family wouldn't just use a sewage system thing, they'd get their own water, so obviously we have our own tanks, so that must be what's like dripping here. So he hires someone to just hook up the tanks on the top of the building to the sprinkler system. So Frederick's wife does come to the thing. While they're there, they end up seeing this lady that Perry doesn't remember inviting. He thinks she's extremely hot, though. And he ends up following her. She's basically like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this. It's a mistake. And more or less saying he's a mistake because Roderick ended up uh, if I remember correctly, like fucking a blackjack dealer, and that's where Perry came from. But again, he doesn't throw anyone out. Like, if you are part of the family, you are part of the family. But yeah, she's like, you were a mistake, but I mean, I guess you're here. And she ends up leaving. She warns Frederick's wife as she walks by that she needs to leave. And she ended up warning all of the, uh, like, host, like the bartenders and everybody, that they need to leave. They don't need to be caught up in this. She doesn't give any reason for it, but all of the host and everything, they leave, but Frederick's wife does not. And so at midnight, they turn on the sprinklers and come to find out it was not water, but chemical waste that the family had planned to get rid of before they tore down the building so that they wouldn't get caught. And so everyone there gets caught in an acid rain. Um, my partner doesn't do well with horror. I usually do, but even with this, with my medical background, this was rather gruesome. I love it. I love the practical effects in this. It's great. But I knew at that point that like, no, I cannot ask them to watch this with me, like ever. Um, you see the people like mangled, and you see them like, some of them are fused together pretty much because of the acid. Um, Including like Frederick's wife also was caught in it, but she lived. So they're able to get her out, but Frederick doesn't understand why she was there. That's an ongoing thing throughout the entire series, is him trying to find out, why was she there? Has she been cheating on him this whole time? Which we, the audience, know, like, this is the only time that this kind of thing have happened. She just kind of felt a little trapped, and she wanted to relieve some stress. Perry was just using her. He wanted to get back at his brother because his brother had like a whole bunch of stuff that he felt he didn't have. Um, but that is the first death. Is Perry is killed in this acid rain. So they're trying to figure out everything that's going on. Obviously, Camille is in charge of this, and she ends up being the one that's like, okay, we need to make this a PR stunt. Because otherwise they're going to change this into just our family looking bad. So she ends up telling Leo that he's like, he was close to Perry, so he should be the one to like talk about Perry and how he was such a great person. And everyone's basically like, but he wasn't. He's like, they're like, yeah, this is the reason that we give to charities, so that we can use this as an excuse. So they're starting all this stuff. Her goons are, you find out that they sleep with her. They're under contract for all of this. But in that process, they ended up falling in love, and they don't want to work with her anymore. It's not really that they don't want to work with her. Let me rephrase that. They do not want to sleep with her, but that is part of their contract. Um, but they were looking into Victorine, because Camille was pretty determined that she was the informant. Um, so Victorine is a surgeon, and she has been doing a heart implant with her partner, her girlfriend. Um, I think they're actually fiancés, and it hasn't quite worked. Like, they've had partial success. They've gotten very close, but her father is pushing her to do like human trials, and she's like, "Yeah, we're not ready for that yet." But he's pushing it, and so she's like, "Yeah, it'll be fine. We'll get there." Um, but they've been using chimpanzees, um, and she will hop them up on adrenaline, um, and whenever they die, she just replaces them. So it looks like they didn't die. Like, it's been going fine. Because that looks good for the company. And Camille's like, yeah, this is shady. So I'm going to figure out what's going on. So in the next episode, Camille ends up going and she's trying to record stuff. The person that is security at the lab is like, yeah, you don't want to do this. You shouldn't be here. She's like, do you even know who I am? And they're like, yeah, I know who you are. You shouldn't be here. Um, and they let her in. She sees the chimps. She's taking like pictures, and the security guard walks in and basically shows like it looks like they have the cut where the heart monitor's put in, and so she starts recording it, and she ends up being mauled because one of the chimpanzees actually got out, and that was what she was seeing. This is where we figure out that there's very much some supernatural stuff going on. Um, and so there's a couple other stuff that we find out in this episode. So we get to meet a little bit more of the lawyer that works for the ushers, Pim. Um, he's very much kept everything together for the family. He tells them what to say, all of that. Madeline kind of works mostly with him. Madeline is kind of the brains behind the operation of all of this. Roderick's kind of the face of the operation. So, um, we end up going, and Camille Camille ends up dying. We don't actually get to see that until the next episode. We do find out Tamerlane's into uh, self cuckoldry. She hires prostitutes to come and sleep with her husband in front of her, and that is the only way that she gets off. Her husband isn't really into it, but he does it for her. And so we have that. Leo is with a partner, but he's not really. Uh, he's not very good for him. And he's super drug fueled because he lost one of his siblings, and he thinks that he killed the cat in this. I will say one of the things I've noticed with Mike Flanagan's work is that he uses fake animals, like very fake animals. Anytime that there is a cat, it's very obviously a stuffed animal. It's still upsetting, but I have to say that I'm not as upset because it's very obvious a plush toy. I don't know if he does that intentionally or if that's just like a preference for his style. But I'm okay with that. I I don't feel as bad. Um, So we ended up having that through all of these episodes going on. We do end up seeing some background. So Madeline uh, visits Roderick. Roderick's trying to sell his medication that ends up making them like rich, and um, him and his sister are working for the company that their dad owned, but they can't. I'm gonna go out of order with this, but Dupin ends up getting them to help him, or he thinks they're going to help him take down this company because there's a whole bunch of like shady shit going on. But they end up two timing him so that uh, Roderick can get in with the president of the company, and they can end up killing him and then taking over. Um, they ended up sealing him inside of a wall after they got him drunk, which again is another reference to another Edgar Allan Poe story. And the reason I know that is I actually saw that one as a stage play, ironically, when I was in middle school. um, So that takes us through episode 3, though. Episode 4 is about Leo. Like I said, he thinks that he killed his partner's cat, Pluto, and he has to find a matching cat. So he ends up going to a shelter. He finds a cat that is like exactly like it, and she's like, "No, that's a like short-haired, super expensive cat. We can't just give that to you because like we have a whole bunch of families that want that specific cat." He's like, I will pay to have all of these cats taken care of so they aren't euthanized. Because she's talking about how, like, a lot of these cats are going to be killed soon, even though they don't deserve it because they are not in a no kill shelter. And he's like, okay, if you give me this cat here and now, I will make sure none of these cats have to die. Um, so he ends up getting the cat, but the cat seems very skittish. Um, and he brings it back to the house, and it seems a little weird to his partner, but his partner's trying to take care of him. It's very important that he's taken care of, that everything is handled. He's been through a lot, so he's just trying to be there for him. Uh, However, the cat ends up attacking Leo all the time. Like, he scratches through one of his eyes. It looks very painful, honestly. Um, and um, we end up seeing Leo eventually like call the person that's in charge of um the shelter to come and take the cat. The cat is apparently in the walls, like crawling around. So he ends up taking his he has like the hammer from the Thor movies, and he starts breaking down the walls to this apartment and trying to find the cat. He ends up hurting the cat, but then the girl that's there from the shelter ends up taking the damage that should be to the cat. Again, proof that there's some supernatural bullshit going on. Um, and in the end, he ends up going and trying to chase the cat. He ends up falling over the railing, and he dies. So that's 3 of the 6 children dead. The other thing is the day that Roderick and Madeline ended up killing their boss. Well, I say killing, putting them in a situation that they would never be found. That they ended. It was a costume party for Halloween or for New Year's. I hear the Halloween music, and I'm like, it's Halloween. Every day is Halloween. But it was a New Year's party, and so they go to a bar and they end up meeting this woman, and she's like, I can make a deal with you, and if you agree, you will be millionaires. You'll never get caught for what you did. Um, but in return, your bloodline ends with you. So the day that you have to die is the day that your children die. Everything like that, basically. Um, and they agree to it. I don't think that they took it very seriously until like now. Madeline starts seeing this woman. This woman is actually the person that has been showing up everywhere. The security guard, the shelter lady, um, and the lady that showed up at Perry's party that he didn't recognize. They're all this woman. Which you find out she can change. She's a shape shifting abomination, uh, but it's never stated exactly what she is. She can also turn into a raven, which obviously is kind of important since Edgar Allan Poe. So they ended up bearing the three, so that leaves the three oldest. Next up, we have Victorine, which she ended up meeting a woman at her fiance's job. Her fiance works as a heart surgeon, and that's the reason they've been able to do all of this. And she meets this lady, and she forges her fiance's signature, and it's like, yeah, we are going to do this surgery on you because you're having so many problems. And of course, it's the shapeshifter, but she doesn't know that. Her and her fiance ended up in a fight where her fiance is like, yeah, I'm going to leave then because this is horrible. Like, we can't do this. We have to make sure everything works. I don't want to hurt people. This was to help them. And so she ended up throwing a, like, little statue thing at her. And she ends up killing her. And she doesn't remember this at first. And throughout this episode, we see her seemingly going insane. She hears, like, a heartbeat everywhere, which is, of course, the Telltale Heart. If you haven't read that story, it's good too. So, we go and we see this, and eventually Roderick's coming to talk to her, and he hears it. And she's like, where is it? And so she starts looking, and Roderick ends up following her, and it is her fiance's body cut open, and the heart implant that keeps a heart, like, pumping, she put it on her fiance after her death. So the heart is beating. It's just not doing anything. And we see Victorine is completely going insane. She thinks that her fiance is still alive, and she ends up killing herself in front of her father. Another side plot that's going on, again, Frederick's wife did survive the acid rain, and he's been trying to figure out why she was at Perry's party. He has a lot, like, he obviously has a lot of resentment for her after that. He ends up bringing her home. I will talk more about that at the episode with Frederick, though. And so episode 6 is about Tamerlane. Her husband gets frustrated with her finally. He's just like, I can't do this. I'm not into this whole thing that you like. You don't treat me like a partner. Like, it doesn't feel like we're in this together. I'm just in this to make you money. So he leaves, and she starts, like, losing her mind, and she ends up going to this promotional thing that she has for a new, like, endeavor that she's trying that's supposed to help people, like, stay looking young and all this stuff called Goldbug. And in the process, she ends up attacking her stepmom. We find out that her stepmom, the only reason that she's really with Roderick is because she is addicted to the medication, and she's still functioning. She was a heroin addict beforehand, but this is worse than heroin. It's just heroin that you can function on, more or less. So she ends up going, and in the process, she attacks her stepmom. And her stepmom kind of figured that would happen, although it was for different reasons. Like, no one likes the stepmom. The stepmom really just wanted to be a part of the family. She didn't have anybody growing up, and then she got on drugs, and she's like, oh, I have a chance to be part of this big family, but no one ever accepted her. Really, not even Roderick accepted her. It was more a PR stunt. So, um, Tamerlane ends up going home. She keeps seeing like a version of herself talking to her in the mirrors, and she keeps shattering them, and the glass is like embedding into her. And then there's the point that she has a mirror over her bed. She ends up breaking, and it impales her. So that's 5 of the 6 children dead, which leaves Frederick. So Frederick has brought home his wife. Lenore was very happy about this because they have the money to get anybody in the entire world to watch after her mom, but she doesn't see any of these doctors, and her mom needs help. But Frederick's just doing this so that he can torment her. He doesn't care if she's alive or not. And he ends up attacking her, and he tells Lenore not to go see her. Lenore ends up breaking this whenever her father's away. She breaks into the room and sees what he did. She calls the authorities. Pym tries to tell her not to talk to them, and she's basically like, fuck you. Y'all fucked up my mom. He's done nothing, and apparently y'all are literally all evil. Like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to. I'm going to do what I feel is right. And good on her. Like, legitimately, her and Roderick's first wife, Annabelle Lee, are the only ones that have, like, a moral compass in this, if I'm being completely honest. But Frederick goes, and he's in charge of watching after the demolition of the site where Perry had his party. And he decides to go in because he wanted to see if he could find the wedding ring of his wife, and he just kind of wanted to see. But he's been doing cocaine, and this entity that has been killing everybody ended up having him put some paralytics that he's been giving his wife so she can't talk to Lenore into his cocaine. And they hit right as they are supposed to demolish this building. And the entity basically tells him, I was willing to let you die peacefully or quickly, but then what you did to your wife was so horrid, I can't do that anymore. And so there is a piece of the building that ends up becoming a pendulum and ends up disemboweling him. I did not feel sorry for him. Like, of anybody in this, I did not feel sorry for him. He was the least there, and you can tell he's a Nepo baby, like, to the utmost extreme. Well, Madeline knows what's going on at this point. We're at the final episode, and she's basically like, well, if you die, Roderick, then we'll be fine, because she doesn't want to die. So she tells him to take all these pills. He's down there in the basement of the building for the company, which is where the boss that they sealed him into the wall. So he goes and he's looking at the wall and he's taking these pills and he falls over and Madeline walks off because she just assumes he's dead. And the entity is basically like, you can't die yet. It has to be all of your bloodline. That includes Madeline too. So he ends up going, and he's been trying to figure out how to deal with this. He even thought about like killing himself before from jumping off like the highest area in the building for the company, and he was too much of a chicken shit. Like, he admits that. So they go, and that's when he ends up inviting Dupin to come and listen to the story. Throughout this, we get a bunch of jump scares of the family, like, showing up, and we hear stuff coming from the basement. He's like, Madeline's down there. So he invited Madeline over to talk, and he ended up doing basically to her what they did to the former boss. He wants to make it painless for her. He ends up killing her and gouging at her, or apparently what he thinks is killing her, gouging out her eyes and replacing them with sapphires, because these are the sapphires from a pharaoh's tomb that were replaced their eyes, and he thinks that she deserves to be a queen to the very end. While all this is going on, the entity goes to Lenore, and she's like, I guess people don't understand what bloodline means. And this part probably was the only part that I found legitimately, like, I could cry. Because this child has been through so much already. But the entity is like, do you want to know what happens? And Lenore's like, yes. And she's like, your mom will recover. And she will go to help people. And it won't be many at first, it'll be just a handful. And that'll grow to a couple of thousand. And then to 100,000. And this the name of this initiative will be Lenore, after her daughter. And Lenore looks so happy. And the entity takes her life there, and she lies over on the bed, and she is dead. That is the most emotional death in this entire thing. Not specifically because it is a child, but because it is the only person that we see with a fucking moral compass. So we go, and Roderick is finishing his story, and suddenly Madeline comes out of the basement. Now, Dupin has everything that he needs, if he ever wanted it. He has him on murder. He has what the drug does to people. He has everything. Madeline comes up, much like their mother. She was not actually dead. And she strangles Roderick, and she dies with him. And that is the end and the fall of the House of Usher. Dupin decides he is not going to take any of these charges. There's no point. The Usher name is dead. The wife of Roderick, the current wife of Roderick, decides to take all of the funds, dissolve the company, and instead starts helping people get off of this horrible drug. We know that Lenore's mom ended up making the initiative in her daughter's name to help people as well. So in the end, it does have a good ending. The reason I like this is probably because, like, while there is a supernatural element, a lot of this is just, like, crazy rich white people being crazy rich white people. So even without the supernatural elements, I could see some of this stuff happening. But it's a very good series. I highly enjoyed it. I'm trying to go through a lot of Mike Flanagan stuff, and I started watching Midnight Mass, and I find that I don't enjoy it as much. I know why. I will deal with that whenever I finish. I am going to be doing that review next. I'm not sure how long it will take. Like I said, I'm not enjoying it as much, so it's taking me a little bit longer. This show is on Netflix. I highly suggest watching it if I haven't ruined this experience for you. Like, seeing it is one thing compared to listening to it or reading it. And I've missed a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said, I do not have a script for this. I do not intend to start having scripts for something like this. I like just talking about my feelings on it. But yeah, so that is the fall of the House of Usher. Thank you, anyone that decided to actually listen to me ramble on about this show and describe it in my half-assed way for the last, 40-something minutes, I think, at this point. And if you want to see me do this some more, like I said, I am working on a couple of things. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I'm willing to take creative criticism. I know that that's not really something to say on YouTube because you're not going to get the creative part. You're just going to get the criticism half the time. But this isn't really something I had planned originally to do, so this is kind of a let's try it out and see how it goes. But again, thank you, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!